Hello everyone, my name is Brennan Maher. That noise you're hearing is my ventilator. And welcome to Page Turners They Were Not, my Star Wars podcast. Today, I would like to talk to you about how my own personal faith connects to Star Wars. Now, I'm sure that people of all religious persuasions or spiritual persuasions, or even none at all, feel a connection to Star Wars and the concept of the Force. We can all relate. So I'd like to tell you how I relate. Now, before I begin, I'm about halfway through Ken Napzok's new book entitled Why We Love Star Wars. It's a fantastic read of Ken breaking down 100 moments that made him love the Star Wars saga. This includes not just the movies, but video games, comics, and novels. And I would recommend this book, as it has been a thrilling read so far. I will give a full review once I finish the book. Yet again, it's called Why We Love Star Wars by Ken Napzok. So let's jump in to my topic today. Now, the reason I said my own personal faith and not my religion is because I do not believe that anyone of religious persuasion should be defined by what church they belong to. To me, faith goes beyond that. So, just for the sake of semantics, I am a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. You may commonly think of me as belonging to the Mormon Church. In recent months, the Church has felt that it is important to distinguish that we are not the Mormon Church, but rather that we are the Church of Jesus Christ, to more fully indicate that we are striving to be good disciples of Jesus, and not good Mormons. Now, that being said, how does my faith connect to Star Wars? In the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, there is a lay ministry. A lay ministry means that the members of the church are ordained to offices without ever having studied in a seminary or without being paid. It is a volunteer church. I, myself, am a minister. Now, what do I mean by that? I believe, in my own personal faith, that the power of God, which is called the priesthood, is given, or should I say delegated, to members of the church. I have been ordained to the priesthood, officially by ceremony and ritual, though the term we like to use is ordinance. So I do not, let me be clear, I think that sometimes in all religious denominations, we sometimes get into the habit of thinking that we have the priesthood, that we have the power of God with us. This is incorrect. God has the power. He merely delegates it. Now, how does this connect to Star Wars? As I mentioned on a previous podcast, I believe that the Force does not belong to anyone. Remember what Luke said in The Last Jedi. He said that believing that if the Jedi die, the light dies, is vanity. The Jedi do not possess the Force. They do not possess the light side. The Force exists as its own living entity. And through the Force users, it uses its power. Anakin Skywalker was created by the Force, that through its power, balance can be restored. Anakin did not own that power. The Force chose him. Just as I believe the Force chose Rey. And I think all of those who are sensitive enough in the Force to wield its power are chosen by the Force. I do not possess God's power. He alone possesses it. But He uses me to bring that power to the world. What I mean by that is, it is my belief that if I am called upon to bless someone who is ill, the power of God acts through me to bless the life of the one who is ill. I am a conduit, just as Force users are conduits for the Force. There are many in our church who are ordained to the offices of the priesthood, and to be clear, even those who are not ordained still are delegated the power of God in their responsibilities. God uses us to bless the lives of others, just as the Force uses the Force users to bring about good and balance. This brings us to the second point I'd like to make is about balance. I believe that good and bad need to exist in the universe. Without these two things, life would be meaningless. There needs to be opposition. In fact, one of our scriptures, or the scriptures that are had, let me rephrase this. The Book of Mormon, which no doubt you've heard of, is subtitled Another Testament of Jesus Christ, in that it is complementary to the Bible in Mormon doctrine. It does not replace the Bible. One of the verses in the Book of Mormon says that there needs to be opposition. Otherwise, there's no point to existence. Opposition between good and bad needs to exist so that people can choose, hopefully, the good. How can you know good when you don't know what evil is? If you don't see what people are like when they're being mean, how can you know what it is to be kind and loving? The same is true, I think, in Star Wars, where it would be impossible to know what the light is if you don't know the dark. But just like in my beliefs, you don't need to go and embrace the bad to learn what good is. Just like you do not need to embrace the dark side to know the light side. You can see it by what it does, but also in Star Wars, yet again in The Last Jedi, we learn that there is light and dark in the universe, violence and peace, life and death. These things are natural. But hopefully, through embracing the light side, just like embracing the good in real life, one can truly be an instrument in the hands of a higher power to bring about good. And the third thing I'd like to mention really quick is there are so many quotes from Star Wars that are applicable to all religious beliefs. Almost everything Yoda says can be applied in some way. And yet again, I would like to focus on something The Last Jedi brings up. And that is a change in perspective. And what I mean by that is that Kylo Ren believes that it's time for the what does he say? He says, let the past die. Kill it if you have to. Now, some people have mistakenly believed that this is the point of the movie. Well, this is the bad guy speaking, so it's obviously not the point of the movie. What we do learn, however, is that there is a bit of rethinking the Jedi need to do. The light and the dark side, and the way the Force functions, does not change. What does change is the perspective. And in the church to which I belong, there is the church, there is the gospel, and there is the culture. And sometimes these two get mixed up. We, and I'm sure all religions can probably agree with this, are reaching a point where we need to rethink many of the cultural aspects of our religions, many of the policies and structures, but not rethinking the gospel itself or whatever religious tenets which you believe in. Our church, the church to which I belong, is definitely hit a point in its history where it's time to rethink a lot of the long-held beliefs that are not doctrine, are not the gospel, but often get confused with them. So I believe that the Jedi in The Last Jedi have reached a point where they basically need to reboot. And we saw in the Star Wars prequels that the Jedi Order had become, had been led astray, blinded by the dark side, and also organizationally and structurally having fallen into a certain way of thinking that they were rigidly stuck in. You remember how the Jedi reacted when Qui-Gon brought Anakin before them, saying, I think this kid is the chosen one. And the Jedi are like, yeah, bring him in, whatever. And they tested him, and I think they all knew he was the chosen one. But they were like, we don't have time for this. They'd gotten so set in their ways. So, in a way, it's a good thing that the Jedi Order fell and had to rebuild. Because I think the Jedi had gotten lost. And I think that this is certainly true in my church, where many things have had to be rethought. Almost from the ground up, without it changing the doctrine. So those are three things. Number one, the priesthood and the Force. Number two, yeah. I've completely forgotten what I've just been saying. But you kind of get the idea. There are several connections between what I believe and what is taught by the Jedi and by the Force users in Star Wars. And I think that this is a great thing. George Lucas was able to create a faith, a spirituality that is so simple and yet so profound that it can be applied to all ways of spiritual thinking. So I thought I would take the time to share with you how it connects to my own faith. Let me know how it connects to your beliefs. You can follow me on YouTube at Tasty Waffle, on Twitter at Brennan Blue, BRENNENBLUE, on Facebook at Brendan Marr. Let me know your thoughts. Thank you so much for tuning in. Yet again, my name is Brendan Marr. That noise you're hearing is my ventilator. And thank you for tuning in to Page Turners They Were Not, my Star Wars podcast. May the Force be with you.